This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. I want to talk about insensitivity, indifference, and callousness, human behavior, and the sociocultural nature of the human condition. Thus, the biological substrate explains human behavior, explains what we perceive as evil traits, evil behavior, or should we look into the environment where we live, these artificial environments, these manufactured environments where we live, which shape most of what we believe we are and conditions our behaviors and everything else. This is not about denying the biological substrate, but the biological substrate of the human condition is both it allows the human being to build societies that go from being humane and functional to provide for the people without destroying all the environment, because there are lies spread about the behavior of indigenous community. They were already destroyed. There are so many BS stories to just that these stories are, most of them, conscious or subconsciously, unintentionally or intentionally, to justify our own systems, not the human behavior, not to explain the human behavior, not to explain, to try to make us to drive us to perceive ourselves, to lead us to perceive ourselves as evil, inherently evil, because the evil is there. Okay, it's always there, waiting. That's why these ideas about this division, this dualistic, the separation, and it's so pervasive in our cultures, and it really has a huge, it is so dangerous, because it really conditions, it shapes how we perceive ourselves, and that it's what really matters. When we see entire people, the population, a large proportion of the population, I would not say the entire population, because usually there are many people they don't speak. They don't speak out because they are afraid. When the majority of the population are for example, like in Israel, the genocidal, the statements that common people are horrible, that common people make, um, painting the Palestinians as animals and as subhumans and as not deserving to live, and the babies must be killed, and this and that. These horrible statements. There are many Jews inside Israel and outside, of course, that they do not agree with this. And then some, they say it loud. But there are more that don't say anything out of fear. They don't want to be identified as, I'm talking about Jews, not talking about the rest of the population. They don't want to be identified as anti-Semites, Jews, and they don't want to become a target. And therefore they just keep their mouth shut. They do not. They try to keep a low profile. And the other ones, we can we say that all these people, like it happened in Germany with the Nazi, or with what is happening now in Ukraine, that a Nazification of a society, with these ideas of this supremacism of a race or whatever it is, or of a culture, of a civilization, and the demonization of specific peoples or ethnic groups or religious groups or whatever, we does it explain, does it really tells us that all these people are evil, or these people that make these claims and engage in genocidal behavior tell us, we can use them as the example to describe and explain the nature of the human condition? I mean, we can explain the human condition, but not in the sense that we try to not normalize, but to transform it in a broader explanation of the human condition. Because as I said before, as this evil is always inside us, as a force that is that truly defines the human condition. And this is the dangerous, because this is exactly what the people that exploit us, that control us, this is exactly the points, the memes, the cultural memes, the ideological memes, that the minority, the exceptions that lack empathy and compassion, which means sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists and megalomaniacals and these opportunistic, these people without scruples, which they exist, they are real, but they are the exception. They are not the rule, but they are the ones that have the advantage, or since they lack, I explain this again because this is crucial to understand how it's so, how we, by buying into these narratives and spreading these memes, we are exactly doing the beating of those that are the ones that are controlling power. That's one that's controlling the wealth. This is the people that we are always saying that they are the globalists. These old banking families, and in general, all the individuals and corporations and families that have been propagating that, because they have been the ones behind the design of the institutions, the making of those institutions, or the transformation of the institutions that are the basis, that are the pillars of any society, of any organized society that requires a state. Those who think this is the same problem when people always say the state is bad. It's the same spread of memes that don't understand that we cannot have an organized society, a complex society, if we do not have a state. A state is not a thing. A state is a set of institutions and principles. That's why we need a constitution. That's why we need to have law. But we can instrumentalize law. Law can be, the institutions can be instrumentalized when there is a symmetry of power. That's the problem. So, by buying into the narratives, the ideological and cultural memes that portray the human condition as inherently evil, we are only spreading the ideological and cultural and political paradigms that are against against the interest, the collective interest, for a society that can be humanized. And I'm not pretending that we will always have evil, because, as I said, there will be always, as I keep repeating it, there will be always people that, for whatever reason, innate or acquired, will develop these traits, these antisocial traits, which are the exception of a species that is deeply social, but because it's also a cultural species. And this is the part I think people do not understand, many people do not understand what really means to be a cultural species. And also because the cultural species is the species that allows us to create these ideas about ourselves, that what are dominant in our imperialistic civilizations, because is the model, is the paradigm, the worldwide paradigm. Even the difference between the Western civilization and the other civilizations like the Chinese civilization and the Indian and whatever civilization it is, there are differences. There are cultural differences. There are differences, but in the end, the basis of the ideological cultural paradigm around definitions of the human condition or human nature are based on these wrong assumptions. That's why it is present on the religious scripts. That's why this is in the philosophy, is everywhere across the human knowledge production. And this, in spite of all the differences, what I'm trying to say is the default system, political, economic, social, and cultural, is the imperialistic civilizational paradigm. And I always say, because this is the problem of a society. How many of us honestly do really think? For example, I'm going to give several examples. How many of you do think deeply, in a comprehensive way, about class society, caste society, and really believe and feel and behave that this is wrong, and for whatever reason this system became dominant? There is something wrong with it. Okay? Even many people that are lefties, that believe in equality, that believe in social justice, they still believe in believe and feel entitled to certain privileges or rights that they also believe others don't deserve, because they don't work hard enough, or they are not smart enough, or they whatever it is. And they associate this with the human condition. This derives from the human condition. This doesn't derive, which means this has a biological substrate, not sociocultural substrate, sociocultural ideological substrate, which becomes a psychosocial substrate, which becomes our very psychosocial identity. And then there are lots of papers, and there are theories, and from behavioral sciences and behavioral psychology and evolutionary biology and all the rest of it, not explaining, justifying, because most of these works are pseudoscience disguised as science. But the problem is since again we have these ideas of how we organize our societies, that we are is so ingrained, so entrenched on us. The ideas of saviors, heroes, gurus, leaders, all these ideas that we have about the need that we, instead of trusting ourselves, because the strength of a group, the strength of a society doesn't come from the power of the leader. Because, by the way, even good leaders, like in a family, like in every family, the ones that are going to come after do not necessarily inherit the traits that gave that specific person or individual the profile that we identify as a good leader, because it has done something for the country or for the liberation of this, or for which again I always emphasize this point. Should we not respect and admire people when they have a good influence? They have done something for humanity, or for a country, or for whatever that is remarkable. Yes, sure. That's not what we do. We have this mentality, this followeristic mentality, that we are followers, but we also believe at the same time, without really engaging in deep thought, in deep analysis. I mean, in critical analysis. It doesn't need to be very deep, but at least critical analysis. Why do we think how we think? Why do we think the way we think? Why do we perceive things the way we perceive them? As if we, for whatever reason, every opinion we have is inherently true or inherently based on facts. We know they are not, but we assume it, because this is part of the very sociocultural ideological systems that are where that's our environment. But this environment that exists in this external environment also exists as our internal environment, and shape our perception and shape how we perceive ourselves. And that's this exactly the point. What I'm trying to get, because our insensitivity, our indifference and callousness is not natural, is not biologically driven. Biology doesn't explain it. Biology only explains it in the sense that for every human behavior, for whatever kind of behavior, there is for sure a biological substrate behind it. That is for sure, because we are a living organism. But that doesn't explain it. The explanation comes from the sociocultural reality where the memes exist, where the ideological and cultural memes exist, and they are spread, and they are dominant, they are part of the dominant narratives that tell us the stories of who we are, of our nature, of everything. And that is, and this is, of course, can't we use our conscious capabilities of critical analysis? Yes, we can. But the point is, critical analysis, it's not. Again. This is always a very, very important point. We are making judgments. First, we make a lot of judgments that are not based in any critical analysis whatsoever. But even when we engage in critical analysis, a conscious critical analysis, which means that we ask ourselves, because we understand that it's ourselves that are engaging in that process, why do we believe what we believe, or whatever it is, we need to understand that we always use ideas, language frames, that most of them were borrowed from others. They exist inside us, as I repeat it again and again, because we are what we are as human beings in our individual form. It's always bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experiences. So when we engage in critical analysis, it's not, there is no freedom in the sense that we are not totally independent. We use ideas and perceptions, and we frame and we see through ideological lenses, and we frame and use language framing that is not ours. What is ours is what we all share as human beings. That's our sense of justice. Okay? Our need for trust, our need for truth, because that is part of our very nature. And why? Because trust, justice, and truth were essential and are essential for the survival of a social species that needs to cooperate. Okay, that the individual need to cooperate and reciprocate, in order to survive as a group, as a community, as an indigenous, as a tribe. And this is what we need to understand, that it's so easy that we small details, and again, evil is in the small details. Okay, you know that the small details, the small incorrect perception, and this and that, they all have the cumulative effect of allowing us of manipulating our perception, and making us have the wrong perception. And this is the problem with this is this if we do not overcome this through a process, as I keep repeating, a conscious transformative process, that we analyze these problems with these lenses, that we refuse to buy into these narratives that only serve the minority, that only serve those who really want to keep us divided with semantics, with over cultural and ideological memes, instead of understanding our the really the sociocultural nature. What does it mean in a comprehensive way? And in order that we can really emancipate ourselves from this paradigm, this political paradigm, this economic paradigm, this societal paradigm, this civilization paradigm, that is keeping us, that is putting our very humanity in jeopardy. You know? And this is, to me, I mean, you cannot, I mean, I you know, what I'm trying to say, you cannot understand what I'm trying to say today if you do not, only those that eventually, if someone wants to waste time listening to my words, because who am I? Okay? I am no authority. I am just a nobody. So I am not an you see these things, I'm not an authority. Who am I? Who do I think I am to tell people, to share with people my thoughts, and to stimulate, to try to stimulate the intellectual curiosity. But not only the intellectual curiosity, it's more than that. It's an engagement in a process of emancipation that we need, that we really need to go it individually. Because as I don't remember the name of the man, we go mad in crowds, okay? We go mad in crowds because we are social beings, sociocultural beings. And we only recover our senses one by one. That's why we need introspection. That's why we need to analyze. And this goes to the point where what we need to have is a set of values and principles that we all need to agree. Must not be imposed. What kind of society, what kind of economic system, where we all have the opportunity to have meaningful lives. And you can ask, oh, that's very beautiful, that's so poetic, that's so, that's an illusion. Nobody is going to work, who is going to do the dangerous works, the monotonous works, all these kind of things that usually people avoid to do, most people. Okay, that's again one thing, one very important detail. Cynicism, hypocrisy, and cynicism do not help those that are exploited and live in the margins, the ones that are deprived of the means to live, even when they work hard every day. And they are the many. It doesn't help. The thing is that we can, for example, and I wrote about it before, and I thought about it before. I don't like to write. It's so painful to write that I really I'm never happy, and then it's really, that's why I write. I have hundreds of things that I start and I never finish because it's painful. I'm always that I need to rephrase it and I need to blah blah blah. The thing is, you can have a system where the jobs. There is several ways to make those kinds of jobs in agriculture, in mining, in whatever. Some can be automatized, so they might not be the need for human labor. Okay, that can be the reality, not in a very in maybe in a short period of time. But those that cannot, what can we do? There will be always people that they do not like to go very deep into thoughts and things like that. They're more physical. They are more attracted to physical activities that don't require deep thought processes. There's nothing wrong. They are not. Those who can do it are not superior. Okay, you are not superior. If you believe that because you have spent all your life in a ivory tower and sometimes doing intellectual, which is not, it's what some call intellectual masturbation. You are not producing anything or reproducing anything, but sometimes lies. Okay. The thing is, the people that voluntarily want to do the works that are monotonous, that are dangerous, that are whatever. These people, this is the ones that need to work less hours. You know, so you work as less hours and you are paid accordingly. If you have to do what others don't want to do, you should be. This is almost kind of, you know, why in our societies it doesn't work like that? Because we have this input for those who wait, the immigrants, but we want them to do those jobs, don't we? It's so nice, the middle class and all these people feeling entitled to whatever, and at the same time they demonize the immigrants, but they want them to do the hard work, the nasty work that they don't want to do. So and that's why we can still pay very little to them, because there is the availability of labor to do it, of people, of dispossessed people, of people that have been deprived of the means to live by imperialism and capitalism, not by nature, not by lack of human dignity, and not because of the human nature, but because of specific conditions, specific economic and political environments that we allowed to be controlled by those that lack exactly the traits that make us humans. And they have that advantage, as I keep repeating. That's why we need to be aware of it, and we need to understand how to how to how, how to build, how to create a culture of true liberation that emancipates us from this from this vicious circle where we are, that we keep reproducing not only the economic and socioeconomic and sociopolitical circumstances, but the cultural, the sociocultural and ideological memes that keep us um, that keep us caged, trapped in wrong perceptions, in wrong assumptions about our very nature. And this is very important if we want to break the chains, because there is always these cultural chains. This is not that we need to understand. If we want, there is only one thing that allows human beings to break away, is understanding, comprehensive understanding, not only intellectual understanding. It has to be holistic understanding. It has to have context, historical context. It has also to have the context that we start to understand who we are as human beings, not how we are described by supposedly uh, science research. I'm not saying there is no use, there are no knowledge produced by many fields that are not useful for not useful for the knowledge of our condition. Yes, there is. But one thing that we need to take note is that one thing is the knowledge, the data. Another thing is the story that is told. You know? And many things, there is the language framing, the way they are framed ideologically, the way the concepts, the ideas, the scientific facts are framed into a narrative. They have the power. They have the power to colonize our minds with wrong perceptions, with incorrect perceptions. And nevertheless, they can use scientific facts to do it. And this is exactly why we need to understand in a deep and comprehensive way the sociocultural nature of the human condition. How easy we are deceived. How easy we are instrumentalized. How easy is to weaponize values, facts, ideas, concepts, values, and build the narratives that we will swallow, that will colonize our minds and shape our opinions, and shape how we perceive ourselves, and shape how we perceive others, and shape how we relate to each other and with nature and with everything, with the universe and everything else. And unfortunately, it seems to me that many people, too many people, don't understand this in a comprehensive and holistic way. And I doubt that we move from the sociocultural environment, I mean political, economic, societally, civilizational, that we need to move from, we need to really get rid of these existing paradigms. I don't see, honestly, this is not, this is not being pretentious or lack of intellectual humility. I really don't see people thinking in a holistic way about this. They are talking about an ecological civilization, but but that ecological civilization is not to get away of the existing paradigm of a different comprehension of the nature of the human condition, of the sociocultural human condition. Of course, I don't expect that my voice will have any influence, because who am I? Yeah, that's it. But that's what I want to represent. I'm trying to do what I think a human being needs to do. You respect and admire other people's knowledge and experience and everything else, and you transform it into your own thought in our own free thought processes, which means that we, by being aware of the relevance of that the ideas of others, the memes that are spread, the deception that exists in our sociocultural environment, if you are aware of how it can influence, and it does influence, how you perceive the world, how you behave, we align with evil ideas, how we can be instrumentalized by them, while some groups are benefiting of us being instrumentalized, that it means that we can be used as useful idiots, as cannon fodder and expendable peons, in the name of lies, by taking lies that as the truth. So this is very important. That is the process by which we become human beings. Instead of these talking points, these slogans and these memes that we have about freedom, democracy, and it has nothing to do with the reality of our lives, nothing to do with the reality of our very cognitive, affective processes. And one thing, test your common sense. Use your common sense. Of course, common sense can also be instrumentalized, okay? And it is instrumentalized. But if we go to basics and we start to align in our heads what kind of values, what are the values that should be the values for a human community at the national level and at the global level, because we need to be internationalists. You cannot think that you can solve problems at the national level and not care at all about what's going on at the international level. That's delusional. Then you can go by yourself. You can always say, this person I mean, is trying to demonize that group or other group, trying to say this, that. No, I'm not going that way. I I have to see, even if you follow a logic that seems very logic, that you live in a society or in a community or in a city, in a country where there are some problems or disturbances or crimes that are supposedly made um, by immigrants, and you want to and you see your the spaces of your city kind of being taken over by foreign groups, and you don't are not happy about that, and it's very it's legitimate. Okay, it's a legitimate grievance, but the catch is, always think that those who are telling you that, who are weaponizing, okay, certain ideas and using them to instrumentalize you, they are not your friends. Pay attention to this process of instrumentalization. Pay attention if the immigrants that are being exploiting in, I'm not talking about the criminals. If there is crime, there is crime. If there's people committing crimes, it doesn't matter if they are national or foreigners. They are criminals, okay? What I'm talking about, that you have more in common with these immigrants than you have with the other ones that are trying to instrumentalize you against them. Because they will also use you against yourself, against those that speak the same language, share the same culture, the same tastes, and everything else. And you need to take note of that. Otherwise, all of us can become what we now are witnessing from common citizens, Israeli citizens, that are totally instrumentalized, and they do believe. And we can see, because it's easy that we see, oh, these people are criminals. How can they? No, it is true that they are human beings, and there is a biological substrate that allows them to behave like that. But we need to understand what the nature of the sociocultural human condition, in order to understand why that behavior is reproduced, and how does the instrumentalization, the indoctrination and instrumentalization process, through the weaponization of concepts, ideas, okay, transformed into narratives, and that the power of them, the power of language framing, in order to transform us in useful idiots and cannon fodder and expendable peons. And this is not an expression of humanity. This is the expression of a societal system and a civilizational system that has been hijacked in this case, for millennia, by those that lack, which is a minority, which are the exception, because they lack the basic traits that define the human condition, okay, which is empathy and compassion, and the ability to cooperate and reciprocate, because that's how our species have been able to survive throughout hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, I'm going to end it here. If someone listens to it Thank you. But as I said, by listening only to this is not going to be enough to understand why I think the way I think. Thank you for listening. I will be back soon.